All right, well, welcome everyone to the basics of residential green building and remodeling. This is a 5-part series that will be broken out into modules for the sake of the on-demand training session. But as far as the live sessions go, this is going to be a 5-part series. The course is going to revolve around the 5 pillars of residential green building. These pillars include energy, health, materials, water, and place. And so the whole course is going to be talking about residential construction practices, whether they be new, whether they be existing, whether they be remodeling, whether they be home improvement. You know, you can green your home from just not a full project, but over time, you know, that's how a majority of people upgrade their homes. That's how your clients work. You can help them expand their projects over time as they get more funds, get more resources, do more work. So we're going to be covering all those things and how they fit in, from those people doing light improvements over time to full-blown new construction. We're going to look at single family. We're going to look at single family attached, neighborhood community scale. We're going to look at multifamily, multifamily mixed use, mid-rise, high-rise, any place that you can live. We're going to go after it with green and take a look at what are the things that are happening out there. What's new in green building science? What do you need to look out for? And then how each of those things fit into these 5 pillars as well. The other thing to know that's important to know is that we are, you know, we're only skimming the surface. There's a lot of things with green building. Each one of these have a lot of context. So we're only going to be skimming the surface. And so we're going to provide you resources. We gave you a handout link that's going to take you into a deeper dive into each one of these things we've been talking about as we move forward, so you can learn more if there's something that stands out to you. And then, of course, we're also going to be having more conversation with you all in the comments, in the chat box, and continuing you know, that conversation. So so we're glad that you can join us, whether you're live or watching it in the future on a recording. Do engage in that dialogue and in that conversation. So the first pillar is energy efficiency, energy conservation. How do we save energy? It's what's been known as the gateway drug to green, right? I mean, that's where the conversation starts. Whether you're, you know, most of us, we need to save money, right? We need to reduce our utility bills and save money in order to justify these things. Otherwise, it's nearly impossible, especially these days. We all have limited income with everything going on. It's hard to justify these improvements, whether new, you know, prices are going through the roof on new construction. It's hard to add more energy conservation and efficiency. And so that's important. The other thing is on the carbon side, right? We might be trying to reduce our carbon footprint, our clients' carbon footprint. A lot of businesses, banks now, I just learned today, are counting homes and construction as scope 3 emissions, right? So scope 1, 2, and 3 are how you track your personal emissions, whether they're right in your building, your project, your business, your company car, your employees. You know, if you're building or renovating homes, you could, in theory, say these are your scope 3 emissions. You're responsible for those carbon emissions. So how do you get them down? And that's another big thing, you know, as a subset of money, we need to get our carbon emissions down. So we're looking at everything we can do, from building insulation, air sealing, HVAC, weatherization, appliances, peak load shaving, carbon offsets, batteries, solar technology, you name it. Those are all the things we're going to be talking about in energy. And that's where we're going to be starting within at least the beginning session. And then also we're going to be looking at health. Health and comfort are one of the leading reasons people are going to be giving you a call to help them with their project, whatever it may be. And it even supersedes now energy conservation. But I only start with energy because typically that's where the money ends up as the conversation, right? Without the money, we can't do the project. But a lot of energy efficiency work improves health, or it can make it worse. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We don't want to make people's health worse. There's been a lot of cases where we tried to do good through energy efficiency, but did a lot of damage with health. And now we got to undo that damage. And so, you know, we're very excited to be talking about health and comfort with COVID-19 running rapid and escalating with the new Delta variant. And whoever watches this in the future, there's probably going to be a new variant from there, unfortunately. Whatever it may be, future pandemics, PM 2.5 from wildfires spreading all over our country right now, worsening the air quality. Health is on the top of our minds. How can I be healthy? How can I be comfortable? How can I be safe in my home? So that's going to be the next part. But as we go through energy, we're going to be kind of hinting to some of the health opportunities. And it's not just air quality, sound quality, mental health and well-being, water quality. PFAS, Michigan is the canary in the coal mine where I live for water quality problems in our country. We were the ones to sound the alarm bell and make some of the most stringent water quality standards. But what can we do now without having to wait for federal regulations within our home? And then EMR, electromagnetic radiation, does impact some people. There's simple things you can do to reduce it, and it is a part of health. And then accessibility. How do we ensure our spaces are accessible for everyone to access? It's a big part of the health equation. It's not just air quality. All right, and then from there, we're looking at materials. And really this, from a new construction standpoint especially, but when you're in repairing homes, what good is a home if water is able to penetrate into the house and leak and cause a mold issue, which then of course causes a health issue. So the number one thing with materials that we're going to be looking at is durability. A long-lasting home, a home that can last 100, 500, 1,000 years, a building that can last that long with minimal maintenance. But then moving beyond that, where are materials coming from? What are they made out of? What is the upfront carbon or embodied energy in the material? Is it benefiting the local economy to supply a certain material? Is it keeping tax dollars local? Is the material causing health issues? You name it. And then also on a construction practice, where is that material going at the end of its life cycle? Is it recyclable? Is it going into the landfill? Is it being burned for renewable energy? We're going to be looking at all the things around materials in our building. Can we renovate instead of tear down and build new? That's another big question for repairing and maintaining materials. Next up is water conservation. We are experiencing mega droughts across the country, even here in Michigan, where I live with the Great Lakes. We were experiencing a drought. I live in an area that's actually running out of water, and we're not going to sure what's going to happen in 10 years. So it's really important to me. But on top of that, water bills are escalating within urban areas, within cities. People can't pay their bills due to, job loss from COVID. So one thing we can do is immediately, stop water from flowing as much as we don't need it. We can be much more efficient with our water, and that'll also help, hopefully, with energy. And so that's important. Then we can look at alternatives: gray water, rainwater catchment, black water remediation, leaks, you name it. We're going to go and spend some time in our fourth session on water. And last but not least is place. And this is really about having a sense of place with wherever your project is or wherever you plan to put your project. How does it fit within the community? Is your project benefiting the community or making it worse? How can you be a betterment to the local community, to the regional community, to the national grid, to the country? These are all big questions we can ask. And in many cases, we're handed a project that's located somewhere and it's just what it is. We can't control how many bus lanes or bike lanes or what park is nearby or you name it. But there are things we can control, especially if we ask more questions. And so having a sense of place and how our project, your project fits into the community, even if you're doing a small home renovation, what is it that you can do to benefit the community around you and take advantage of opportunities out there? And so, this one we're going to spend a lot less time on because, again, it's just so much outside of what you can do. But it is important, and it is an aspect of green, and there are connections there. So, what's important to know is that these 5 pillars that we just went through, they can benefit each other, right? We talked about a little bit about that, but they can also hurt each other, and you might have to make a choice. You want to maximize the 5 pillars in your projects, whether they be new builds or construction, whether you're doing design or whether you're doing building or whether you're selling a home. You want to maximize all 5, but you do have trade-offs that sometimes you have to pick one or the other, and your client has to make a decision on which one they want to go for, and you want to try to sort of minimize the damage to the other one through these strategies that we're going to talk about. So we're going to have a lot of examples, and throughout our session, you're going to see these little logos pop up. So, here you can see the sun and the water logo. So you can see the sun, the health logo, water, the brick materials, and the place. These are going to pop up, and these are going to be, when they do pop up, I'm going to ask you some questions because they're going to be diverging from the particular topic that we're on. If they pop up and they're kind of tilted off to the left or the right, that means they could be sort of a negative. So that's just something to think about as we're going. So here's an easy giveaway one I'm going to give you, right? If we have water saving shower heads, then our water heater is going to use less energy. And to take that even further, every time you turn on the tap, if your water is coming from a central processing facility, it burns carbon and it takes trucks of chlorine to chlorinate that water. So there's carbon being burned at the water facility. So saving water saves energy. That's easy. I think we all know that. Those are two connections. But there are limits to some of these things. And I don't know if you can see that they're moving there to the left here, but this is my house. This is at nighttime. These are some of the kilowatt hours I'm tracking and using here. And I could easily not use this much this much energy. I could use a lot less energy in the nighttime, maybe 1 kW. But here, look, from a health aspect, what's going on? I've got a radon mitigation system. Don't want to have radon in my house. It's a lung cancer issue. Here you can see I have water issues, right? I've got UV filters to make sure I don't got bacteria coming into my house. Both of these things alone are pulling a kW of energy 24 hours a day. And so it's dragging on the grid and my energy use. It's a negative, but it was a health choice I made. So those were, trade-offs. So we're going to be talking about those trade-offs as we go throughout this session. So before we get into the 5 pillars and the technical aspects, we need to cover just some basics. And we're going to get more into this in future sessions as a part of this series, after this series on each of these basics. But these are going to be important on the mechanisms to deliver this technology, right? We can talk about these technologies, these 5 pillars of green, but if you can't deliver them effectively, they're no good, right? So project planning is huge, right? We need to start with project planning. And I can tell you, even a small home improvement requires planning. It requires thoughts to get these 5 pillars right. You can't just sort of ram it in and move forward at lightning speed and hope for the best. You got to really put the team together. And the team might be different. If you're running your own project, you may be the team, right? So that's you sitting down with a piece of paper with some ideas, putting them down, going through some education, some trainings like these. And then you get on the other side of the coin, you got a large mixed use multifamily project. And now you're talking about having, 20 people involved. So you need to get all of the trades together and have a conversation, how they all fit into the 5 pillars of green, how what they're doing affects what someone else is doing, and how at the beginning of the project, they agree to whatever sustainability goal you set. They're all aware of it. They have it written into their contracts that they have to adhere to these sustainability goals. And they know how whatever system they're impacting can impact another system. So it's very important to have these pre-construction planning review meetings, what LEED calls design charrettes. There's additional credits there. Enterprise Green Communities requires these on low-income housing tax credit projects. Green Star rewards for them as an additional point in the rating system. But you're getting the team together, HVAC, solar, landscape architect, plumbing, insulation, GC, design, the rater, all of these folks in the room and getting them to talk and understand how they all fit in. And then they're all being managed and coordinated throughout the project. Again, hopefully communicating issues as they come up on what might hold back the sustainability. And again, we can talk about all the technology all day long, but it doesn't matter if you can't communicate with each other, your project is going to fail. And I can tell you that from the hundreds of projects we've seen where there's a clear communication fallout, and it's like, yep, that's where they stopped talking to each other. That's where someone didn't say there was an issue or wasn't assertive about that issue, and let it go on to the end. And then the finger pointing game comes out. And so we don't want you to play the green building finger pointing game. We're going to have a session on that in a little bit too, on how to avoid that and how you can take responsibility and ownership no matter what role you play. Everybody plays a role in making projects green, and you can all drive that. And then making sure you do the plan review. So making sure before the plans are submitted and construction is done, you've reviewed it, you've made sure that the green aspects are in place. The builder can't build it green if it wasn't put in the plan in the first place, if the specs aren't clear on what needs to be done. So we're going to go through what all those specs are and what they could be, what opportunities there are. But that's very key. That's very important. So we're going to have a whole session in the future on planning, strategies, design review, and construction management. But just kind of giving you an awareness on that for now. And then also, and this is where your first links are going to kind of start to kick in on that handout, but having credentials, having certifications, right? Working with people who are trained, credentialed. What a credential says is, I've went through the training, I've went through the education. That's what you're doing now. I have continuing it. I'm keeping up on what's going on in the industry. Very important to make sure, again, that these green processes are implemented, right? I'm going to do this session over the course of the summer, and then it's going to be dated within a month because it's green building science and there's new things. Now, certainly there's things that will hold up for a long time, but you have to keep learning, have to keep getting education. So there's a lot of resources. The LEED Green Associates, it's the #1 recognized international global green sustainability credential. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're doing LEED or not, that people ask if you have it. And then you get your LEED AP after that if you are more involved in LEED, right? So we're going to do some trainings on that, some groups on that. We have exam prep material for that coming up here for you. But that's a big one to look for. On the other side of the coin, there's the certified passive house consultant. And we're going to talk about passive house. It's a huge growing trend. And do you have that kind of knowledge? Are you a passive house builder, designer, you name it? It's going to be important as we try to design our buildings or renovate our buildings for more energy efficiency. And then we have our own internal program, the Certified Green Home Associates or designation. And so this course, this series that you're taking, is going to knock out a majority of what you need to do to get that. We'll send out a link for what the remaining things you need to do to get that. But this is a session that's focused, unlike the LEED Green Associates, it's focused on the residential sector. It's focused on the 5 pillars of green. And if you certify a home to any kind of green standard, you can go from the associate level, which you're getting here for this training, to the professional level. And then all of our webinars that we do, can help you maintain that education. And then, from there, you're taking these technologies, how do you organize them? How do you communicate them? Well, that's when you pursue a residential green building certification. And we're going to do a whole training comparing all these certifications on what makes sense, which one to use based on what your project is. We've done a lot of those in the past too. And really at the end, first off, foremost, these trainings, these certifications give you a checklist, a tool, right? They give you something, whether you're certifying or not. Open up the National Green Building Standard, Green Star, LEED, whatever it might be, grab it and use it as a way to kind of take everything we're going to talk about today and organize it sort of in a nice fashion that can be used for your project. But these are very important, and we're going to be talking throughout the session on some of the various green programs and how some of the aspects of the 5 pillars fit into them or benefit them or are mandatory in them. So you'll see that sprinkled throughout. And then we'll have a full session on the comparisons, which will be required for your certified green home professional designation. And then from there, financial aspects, right? How do we pay for all of these things? Tax incentives, there's 26% tax credit back on geothermal source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, solar. There's, money for energy efficiency improvements. Here in Michigan, our utilities giving out tons of money for going electric on buildings. There's federal tax credits. There's policies in play. There's using the mortgage, right? And refinancing your home, which is a great opportunity to have your clients find cash to do this, is to use the refinance. There's green banks like our friends at Michigan Saves and Clean Energy Union. We're going to have a whole session on these financing resources and what to look for in the future. Again, because without that, it'll be difficult to do any of these things. All right, so energy. Energy is our first pillar. We're going to try to get through as much of it as we can in this session, and then we'll continue it into the next session. So I want you all to take a second here and look at what we call the energy efficiency pyramid. So on the bottom of the pyramid is cheaper, sort of more do-it-yourself, saves less energy, not as much savings in carbon or comfort. On the top, as we go up the pyramid, it becomes more expensive as upfront cost, becomes more work, less ability to do it yourself, but there's much more energy savings. And the thing to know is that, obviously, if you're doing a renovation project, you're starting with a whole subjective palette that might change a lot of these things. So you might, if you've got a project in mind, it might change a little bit for you based on where your project is, but this is basically the general consensus on sort of the top to the bottom, no matter what kind of project you're doing. It just is a general broad. So here is all of them. And what I want you to do is just take 1 minute. I'm going to stop it. Take 1 minute, post it in the chat if you want or wherever. Think through, reorganize these based on the sort of cheaper, more do-it-yourself at the bottom, all the way to the top where it gets more expensive, more work, but more energy savings and more comfort. So I'm going to give you all like a minute to do that. And you can throw your ideas in the chat and share with everybody. And you'll be using this to see how accurate you were as we go through the session. All right, so hopefully you've got all that put together. For those of you listening to this on demand, paste your ideas down into the comment section, wherever that is. We'd love to see what your thoughts were and to see if you're right. All right, so those of you, so I guess, so the first one is, we'll give it to you. A lot of you got this one right. It's awareness, understanding. It's really just getting a sense for what is going on in the project. And so looking at the age of the house. So if it's a new construction, it's new. The size, the location, window to wall ratios, orientation, conditions. These are all things we need to know about the property in order to make an informed decision, just as a starting point from there, as a simple one. So you can see here, if you created a little graphic, you can fill in the bottom one. Just make sure you got it right, but the awareness and understanding. And just so you know, if you're looking through the slides, we didn't provide these slides because we didn't want to, ruin the secret or surprise for you. It's not much of a surprise, but so you'll see, if you're looking for that in the slide, we did void those out. So you'll see jumps from one to the next. So just a heads up on that. So if you've got an existing home, you've got data. Your energy bills. If you've got an existing property or property manager and you're planning to build, or you're a single family home builder and you're planning to build the same project in the same climate, you've got data from your past clients. You've got data from your development. Go get that data. If you're a builder and you're not getting the data from your clients, they're not signing a disclosure, have them start signing a disclosure that they have the utility release that data to you, because that is valuable data for you to be informed in your next project. And so again, just looking across your portfolio, right? And saying, if you own a portfolio of buildings, how are they performing? And why is one doing at 10,000 versus one all the way down to just 25? Are they the same building? Where are they located? What's going on? It's, you can't manage what you don't measure. So just get the information. A lot of people I'm just spending half my time convincing developers just to look at the information and to put it into something that makes sense. And we get paid to do that, to help people, and many of our friends who we highly recommend do that as well. That's the starting place. Just start there. Smart meters, we're going to talk a little bit about those, but these are becoming really important because they're giving you daily energy usage down to the hour, which being off peak, and for in our case where I'm at, a 2 to 7 is going to be becoming more and more important, and we're going to talk about that later on, for that information. So again, if you've got an existing housing, where are you? Where are you on your peak? Are you staying off the peak? And so when you're the other thing is there's devices out there. You hook them up to your electric box, and again, highly encourage these for new construction. Just toss them right in there as a part of the deal. But they're going to tell you where energy is going, how much electricity is going. Unfortunately, we can't do it for gas, so we just have no clue with gas. But for electricity, it's real easy. And so you just get a sense on what's going on, and then you can make an informed decision or an informed plan to reduce. So part of the awareness and the education is getting an energy audit, right? So there's only so much you can do. All those other things, that's all do it yourself. Get an energy auditor in, have them set up a blower door test to depressurize the home or the building and give you a sense for how leaky it is. These tie to utility rebates and credits too. And you can have that blower door tester come in during various phases of the new construction project. And in some cases, it's required for code as well on new builds. And if you're building a new project, again, what was your last blower door test on your last home? Okay, how do you beat it on the next one? What were the issues? Get that information. Same goes for duct leakage testing. If you're still using ducts, they can be very leaky. You might not be able to make a certain program, like LEED requires through Energy Star, and Enterprise Green Communities require that you have Energy Star level duct tightness, which is pretty aggressive, and Passive House as well. And so make sure you're testing your ducts. If you've got really cold rooms in certain areas of a house or a project, test the ducts to see how leaky they are and what can be done to repair them, so you have that information. And then once you have the assessment done, you're going to have hopefully a score, a rating, an energy improvement plan that says, here's where you are now, and here's where you can go with some improvements that make sense for your project. And hopefully, you'll have, just some more ideas on what your electric to gas usage ratio is, what your kBTU per square foot is, and then again, a repair plan based on now versus later to make an informed improvement on your project. For new construction, you want to do this in the design stage before you start construction, before you start the gut rehab. Go through that energy modeling process. And we're going to talk a little bit more about energy modeling later. And so while you're going through that design review process, you might say, wow, look at where all my energy is going. HVAC, air leakage, I'm using a ton of energy in all these certain areas. Then you work with your team during that design review process to upgrade your plans and your specifications. And now, boom, inherently what's going to happen is your plug loads are going to take over, right? Because that's your client using, that's you and your house using energy, especially now when we're all at home. I'm up 30% since 2019. That's you using energy, is just living. I mean, there's only so much you can do there as a builder designer. You can't control if someone has an Energy Star iPad if they make those, but you can control these other areas, right? You can reduce energy in these other areas and save significant amounts of carbon through the plan. You want to do this in the design stage. You don't want to do this after it's built. It's too late then. But if you are a builder, you can go back and look at your previous projects and say, hey, let's take the energy model and run it through and see what we can do better had we had done something differently. And then heat load calculations, you want to make sure on an existing home or a new home, and we're going to talk about these later in the HVAC portion, but you want to make sure that these load calculations are done. And you can do these yourself. I did my own. This is mine, and you can put a link. I put a link there in the resources. But you can use this information to make sure you've got properly sized heating and cooling equipment, and you want to make sure it's done in tandem with the property improvement. And then lastly, you've got solar. And so you can do your own solar site assessment on a project to see how valid it is. And so we have a webinar on that that we have a link for in the resources, but you can evaluate your own properties, whether they're new or existing, for solar opportunities before you call in, the solar salesman who's trying to, of course, sell you more solar. But many of them, are great and give you honest feedback. So, so that's the awareness side. So we're gonna take a quick look here and pause and think through this. And I want you to drop your questions, your comments into the chat, into the comment box. What are some other educational awareness ideas that I missed? What do you like to use to engage your client, and what general questions do you have? All right, so we got through awareness and understanding. Who wants to just quick take a guess? And I know you've all made a lot of guesses, but just real quick, what's our next one after awareness and understanding? And it's in the picture, it's right there. It's a giveaway. Yeah, there you go, low-hanging fruit, right? So so you get that awareness, you get that understanding. Where do I start? Now there's a lot of stuff that, again, depending on where you're coming at from this, you can knock out quickly. If you're helping homeowners, you are a homeowner, or you're planning a whole project. What are the real simple things that can start to save energy right away? Lighting, right? It's a no-brainer. LED lighting is it's going to completely reduce that load immediately. And that's going to be a huge benefit. And I think I forgot a logo here, but there are some health benefits of LED lighting, or health drawbacks, but you can have that warmer, richer, oranger light, probably what you see glowing on my face right now, because the full blue light spectrum can be damaging to the eyes. And so having clients with, light bulbs, you can control the lighting aspect of it, can be less about energy savings and more about, lighting. Also, we're talking about capping lights off on the exterior of the building so that they're not shining into the sky. That's wasting energy. It's also damaging flight patterns of birds and migratory birds. And it's ruining our view of the universe, which can impact our mental health. So if you've ever looked at the Dark Sky Initiative, you can save money and energy, not destroy migratory bird patterns, and hopefully someday we can see the entire galaxy again. Is my dream anyway. So that's a win-win-win for outdoor lighting. Something a little innovative here is, and I have a couple of these, but these are built-in motion sensors. So you can install these in certain areas where lights might get left on and forgot about. You probably don't want to put them in living spaces because they can be annoying, but the lights themselves will cut out if they don't detect motion. So that's pretty cool. You can get these, they're coming down in price. They cost what LEDs used to cost when LEDs cost too much. So you can check them out as well. And then I've got, these installed all over, but little, work with your clients. You can have them be built into the wall. We've seen them be built in new construction, but just for at nighttime, sort of these photo sensor, motion sensor LEDs, you can get around your house at night if you need to without blinding your client, blinding yourself, wasting a lot of energy, but they just kind of come on wherever you need it, in the kitchen, the bathroom, they pop on. You can get the plug in, or you can build them right in on a new construction project. A great way to save energy and not be rudely awakened in the middle of the night. So we asked this question again, but real easy. This is something anyone can do. The HVAC contractor should have it in their bid. If you don't have an HVAC contractor, or you're working with a client who wants to do some work themselves, or the contractor forgets to do it, you can do some mastic. And again, I forgot to put the little logo in there, but there could be a potential health drawback here. The mastic actually has VOCs in it, and so you can get low VOC mastic to make sure you're not, dragging down the health of the house. Or you can go with metal tape. So there's a metal duct tape. Doesn't seal as well, but you can tape all those seals and joints in the exposed duct wherever you can find it. If you can access your pipes on an existing home, especially, or on a new build, and the plumber forgets to do this, you can wrap it in a foam sealant, a mineral wool sealant, a fiberglass sealant, all sorts of things that you can wrap it. For lead, you can pick up 2 points. Green Star, you can pick up some points for R4 wrap. Some of the other programs just give you points just for having the pipe wrap as well. Sealing your doors, right? And getting a sealant around the doors and the windows, weather stripping them, stopping that air leakage. That's, to some extent can be a do-it-yourself strategy. There's things they sell where you can sort of patch the door right up from the bottom, or repair the threshold underneath. But again, these are keeping leaks, and I forgot to put the materials logo there, but that's keeping pests from coming in, which the pests are getting nastier and more disease these days. So it's a health issue at the end of the day. Caulking, right? You can take down those baseboards, or you can add the baseboard back up, but caulking around those baseboards, and try to use a low VOC caulk again. So for your health, but if you can take the baseboard off, you can get a better air seal, but you can caulk around that baseboard as well. Easy do-it-yourself, low-hanging fruit to stop. And you can keep on caulking around those windows, right? New windows are expensive. Caulk around the sides of the windows, again, if they've got those old windows and they're kind of cracked. For plugs, if you're putting in brand new plugs that are on an exterior wall, or you're renovating a wall that might be a little bit leaky, or you just have a basic wall, you can take the plug box out and you can buy an insulated one. Go ahead and just in an older home, put your hand up to the wall and feel air coming in through that outlet, right? And these are a 2-for-1 if you've got kids, or your clients have kids. You can put those caps on and stop them from getting hurt. Plus it plugs those leaks, but it's still leaking around the box most likely. So the one on the left there, you want to seal up that whole box and stop those leaks. And that's a great way to stop that airflow. For folks who have a lot of plugins and power supplies, power strips are a great way to be able to just quick cut that energy use to a lot of different things. Someone told me once that they shaved $70 off of their energy bill by just unplugging things and using power strips. I mean, my guess is they had a lot of stuff, more than normal, but that was a huge amount of money they said they shaved off 1 month. And then taking that even further is what we call sort of the kill switch, right? I have one of these. It was built into the house. Really cool. But you go in and you just flip one switch and it knocks out the power to the entire bottom plate of an electrical line, or it takes out the entire, you go to sleep, you knock out the entire entertainment center and take out that. So you can build this in new projects for your clients, or do a smart home system, of course, where they can do it with their phone nowadays. But if they don't like the smart home approach, you can do it the manual way and just be able to knock that power right out. And there is a health benefit to this. Does anybody know what that might be? Electromagnetic waves, EMF. You want to take power flow out of rooms where people are sleeping. And we'll get into health effects of EMF later. And then blinds, right? Having blackout blinds, keeping the sun from overheating the space can be another way to stop a home from overheating and save energy, especially as things get hotter. So designing in accordion blinds, ones that can be easily cleaned, that don't get knocked off the wall in a new project or a new build if you're an interior decorator, ones that have the reflectivity in them, you can put those in. Here's another one, test and tune, right? Update your furnace, make sure there's a schedule, work with your HVAC to come in, test and tune your furnace, your AC, your heat pump, make sure it's working. Changing those filters helps with a flow. And also it's health. Hopefully that's an easy one, right? Better filters, cleaner filters equal better health. We'll cover filters though in the next one. So that is it for the low-hanging fruit session. So some of the questions I want you to drop into the chat box are, what are some other ones I missed? There's probably a lot more. So could you share those with us, share them with the audience, share some ideas that you have, that I didn't even think about. So let's talk. What's everybody's guess for the next of the energy efficiency pyramid here? You said passive solar, you win the prize. I don't know what the prize is, but whenever we figure it out, we'll give it to you. So again, you've got that awareness, you've got that education, you're working with your team, you're trying to understand what opportunities, whether it's new or existing, you're doing the plan review, you had the energy audit done, and you're starting to peck away at some of those simple low-hanging fruit things. You're changing out light bulbs, you're making sure there's proper simple air sealing measures, pipe wrap, all that. Now, from a passive solar standpoint, this is one where I have to notate that on existing homes, you really can't do much, unfortunately. You really, if you're doing a gut rehab, you have more at your disposal, especially if you're changing where windows and walls are. And if you're building new, I would argue that you have no excuse not to do this, because unless you're building in the woods, which helps one side of the equation anyway, especially in cold climates, you really, the only reason you wouldn't be doing this if you're building new is that you've just rammed through in a hurry and you haven't engaged a design side for passive solar. Because on the new side, you are starting with a fresh palette. You could do whatever you want. And so from new, you have really little excuse not to do this, other than, and I've been told this from some of our lakefront home builders, is they want that view of the lake. And that view of the lake may not line up with passive solar. So, okay, fair enough. But there are still things you can do. So let's take a look here, right? This is one of our members, Michael Clement, project, pending LEED Platinum net zero project. Real exciting. We have a whole session on it on our YouTube, but you can see here, you've got that reflective white roof that's keeping the house from overheating. You've got the south facing glazing. You've got the nice overhangs. Let's zoom into the porch here so you can see the overhang, really big overhang there, shading everything in the summertime, shading those windows, shading the patio from overheating to some extent. The patio, I think, is reflective too. So you're really just stopping that house from overheating in the summertime. And then in the wintertime, the sun will dip real low into the horizon there. It'll come in these nice south-facing windows and it'll hit this concrete floor or hardwood floor, whatever it is, and it will absorb that heat and then radiate that heat off into the night, providing totally free energy for your client, assuming you've designed it, appropriately. And so this, again, is another one of Michael's projects, which was the first to ever get Living Building Challenge certification. It's got a trom wall system in it, and there's a link in the handout so you can learn a little bit more about these trom walls. But they're designed so, again, they're absorbing that heat in the house in the wintertime, and then radiating it back out into the house over the winter. And I remember I saw in I think it was February 8, 2018, I saw a Facebook update from the owners of this project, and it was the dead of winter, and it was like we were getting hit with a massive negative temps, just like this year actually in Michigan, and very cold, and it was super cold, and the sun had peaked out just a little bit, and they told me that they had a picture of one of these windows cracked open because their house was overheating. The HVAC wasn't running, right? We can do this. We have countless stories of that, so we know it can happen, and we know we can do it, especially in our cold weather climates. And in our warm climates, you just want to keep that sun out from overheating. So that's really the extent of passive solar. What are some passive design strategies you use or you see? What are the barriers, and what kind of questions do you have, on the topic? So take a guess. We're looking at the next rung up. What is it? Right. So yeah, absolutely. If you guessed appliances, you got it right. Try to give you a little tip there. So again, you've got that education, you've got that awareness, you know what's going on in the house, you've planned for and knocked out some of those real simple things. You've, in the new construction side, especially, and where you can in gut renovations, you've designed your house to take advantage of the free passive solar income, and make sure that the house doesn't overheat. The appliances side, again, depending on your skill set, your skill level, and everything, that could again go back down into low-hanging fruit. But a lot of people are not installing their own appliances. It's being spec'd out, and there's a cost issue. They can be very costly and prohibitive. And so we kind of put them up a tier level above, on the scale. So, real easy. If you're not specifying Energy Star certified appliances in the year 2021, and whoever watches this in 2022 and beyond, you're almost going out of your way not to do it. And you might be doing that because you're trying to recycle the appliance, and that, that's worth material points and, consideration. And repairing an old appliance, that's another conversation, but you're almost going out of your way. But to take it a step further, you can actually go onto the Energy Star website, and you can look at appliances by efficiency and how efficient they are. And you can work with your clients to spec the one that is not only the best look for their kitchen, but the most efficient of it. So if you really want to drill down, far, you can grab, they give out these awards for their most efficient appliance of the year awards. And so you can check that out every year. They do a new one. So here's a challenge question for you. So there's gonna be two questions for this one, but left or right side, which one, just, all things equal, whether they're Energy Star certified or not, which one inherently is going to be more energy efficient, and why? You said the one on the right, you'd be the winner. The thing is we want to avoid side-by-side doors. That's number one. So we want the freezer on the top or the bottom, doesn't matter. And we want to get rid of the ice maker, because they use more energy. They inevitably clog up, they waste water too. So, yeah, so you can make ice in the freezer with a nice tray. So that's, again, if you're just being real nitpicky on how efficient you want to be. You're looking at peak load. We're going to talk about that. So yeah, now we've got the health sign down there. So we got a health alert here. What can we do to make a refrigerator more healthy? The answer, again, we're going back to the electromagnetic EMRs, right? Keep appliances 6 feet away from the sleeping area. Again, not everybody is impacted by EMRs, but certainly a simple thing you could do when you're designing. And bacteria may be living in the ice maker, and if you don't clean it out, could cause another health issue as well. So it's great conversation with everyone on the refrigerators here. So so moving on to the next one here, we're taking a look now, and we're going to ask another question. But just all things, being equal, Energy Star or not, which washer here is going to be more energy efficient? Right. So everyone's pretty much got it. Everyone knows the front loaders are more efficient. There could be a potential health trade-off, and I didn't put that in there, but if you keep those doors shut all the time, mold can and mildew can form around the lips. That's one of the drawbacks of these. So I know I have one. I keep that door open all the time just to make sure it dries properly and make sure you clean it. So you don't want mold getting into clothes. So these are things to be considering, though. All right. So I'm going to just kind of read this to you this is from the Department of Energy. I have a link for you in the handouts. Conventional residential tops typically employ gas or resistance heating elements to transfer energy with efficiencies of approximately 32%, that's gas, 32% efficient, 75 to 80% respectively for electric. Residential induction cooktops instead consist of an electromagnetic coil that creates a magnetic field. When supplied with an electric current, when brought into the field, compatible cookware is warmed internally and transfers that energy. So what we're talking about is, from an energy efficiency standpoint, gas on the low end, 30% maybe. Electric, somewhere around 70%. And induction going even beyond traditional forced resistance. So what we know is that from just an efficiency alone, with induction stoves, you're just heating, right? You could put your hand, go ahead, crank that thing up all the way and put your hand on it. You won't burn your hand because it's just putting the magnets through the pan and cooking what you need. And we know we have famous chefs that are converting to induction cooking, electric kitchens, getting away from gas for the health of their employees, right? And so, it's no surprise here. We've got the health label here because gas puts off PM 2.5. That's wildfire smoke, right? Puts it in it's an asthma trigger. Electric doesn't, but electric is terrible to cook on, right? It's awful. And so induction gives you that control, gives your clients that control. And if they don't believe you, you know what? Here's what we see builders doing all the time, or consultants doing, or libraries in California doing, right? Get them a single plate top cooktop, right? And challenge them to cook on the induction stove for 1 week, 2 weeks, right? And tell them that, have them tell you that they don't love it and why, right? And give them that assignment, and then get it back and then transfer it to the next client, right? Just get one of these stoves and little, they're, maybe 50, 60 bucks online, you name it, and kind of move it around with your clients and have them test it out. And we see everyone getting converted, to induction from there. And so installing these induction cooktops in your projects when you're renovating, or at least going electric, they can still have emissions when food gets burned, and we'll get into that in the next session. But we're talking about more advanced efficiency. Looking at our dryers, look at this, right? Dryer maintenance, right? We gotta maintain dryers, or this is what you're gonna get. This is what your clients are gonna get, right? We're talking about another hole in the wall, right? Another hole for air to leak, another hole for pests to come in. So we're looking at health, we're looking at comfort, we're looking at durability. Down here is a picture of a house I had where we got rid of the ducted dryer and just stuffed that hole up and sealed it from the outside, right, to stop the air leakage and the moisture and pest entry, right? So these are very important for energy efficiency, to use a condensing dryer, ideally electric, that just moves the water right down the same pipe that the washer goes, or a heat pump dryer, which is the most energy efficient dryer you can get, a little more expensive, but these are really the way to go. And so, work with your clients to spec these in. The biggest thing is if the pipe's not there, it's really hard to use a ducted dryer. If there's no pipe, it's going to be expensive to drill it in. So, that could be a motivator to make sure they're using condensing or heat pump dryers. And then the dishwasher, again, health impacts of a dishwasher, and we're going to talk about this later, but just thinking while we're talking about appliances, more than energy efficiency, look at that dBA rating, right? And look at how much sound it puts off. Especially if you have an open floor concept plan, it can be really annoying. I can tell you from experience, to have that loud, annoying dishwasher. You can get much quieter ones. So look at that dBA rating, and we'll talk about though in the health section, but look at that among the Energy Star certification. So we're at the end here for today, other than Q&A. But the question that I want to leave you all with, that we're going to, talk about here before we close up on this one and then move to the next one is, what appliances do you like or hate? What do you usually spec? What do you want to try on the next project or the next build? And then specifically, let's look at any of the questions before we close up. So thank you.